Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Kadita webinar live on October 7, 2025. If it's your first time attending one of our webinars, Kadita means learning in Creek, and today you'll be learning about building a great development team for success with Shelly J. Tucciarelli, Executive Director of Visionary Ventures NFP and owner of Turtle Clan Development Services. My name is Jasmine Rahming. I am the Marketing Coordinator at the Native Learning Center, and we're so happy that you could join us today. Please follow along as I read the disclaimer out loud. This webinar provides a summary of fundamental concepts, requirements, and/or procedures within the allotted 90 minutes. The materials discussed does not illustrate all possible scenarios that could be applicable. Also displayed here is our copyright infringement law. This is just a friendly reminder that the webinar presentation materials are protected by copyright and trademark, trade secret, and under other intellectual property laws. Before we get started, I want to familiarize you with the learning platform and where things can be found. I have put the links to the PDF of today's slides in the chat. You can also access a copy of the slides as well as access today's webinar recording in the future by going to the course section here on our platform. Any resource items for download are also available within the online course when you go to the courses page. Each time you're ready to join our webinars moving forward, you'll just need to log into the website and click the large green banner that will be accessed at the top of the screen, just like in this picture. When you first join a webinar, it will prompt you to complete an audio test before joining. Please select the listen only option so we can avoid any audio feedback during the webinar. But today is a special case, so if you feel like speaking, go ahead. If you are needing to change the speaker your sound is playing from, you can select the phone icon down at the bottom of your screen. This will bring up a list of your speaker and mic devices so you can choose your preferred audio output. We do encourage you to participate during today's webinar, and we will primarily rely on the public chat in the left-hand gray menu panel. You can open the public chat and the shared notes. If you click on the public chat, you will see a chat open between all webinar attendees, the NLC facilitator, and the webinar instructor. Simply click in the box that says send the message to public chat, type the message you want to send and enter, or click on the blue paper airplane icon to send the message in. Please send your comments and any questions you have into the chat, and feel free to use the raise your hand feature at the bottom right corner of the screen if you think we have missed something along the way. Any tech issues can be submitted here as well, and I'll try to do my best to help navigate through it. And if you click the shared notes section, you'll find some helpful links, like a link for today's webinar feedback survey, a link to join our weekly email newsletter, so you can always know when our webinars or various trainings are happening, and a link to all of our Kadita webinar archive on our YouTube channel, a link to connect with us on LinkedIn, and a link to bookmark for easy login to Kadita Constant Learning in the future. Let's all get the chat box going together by letting us know your name and where you're joining from and your tribal affiliation. If you have one, you may be a tribal employee and your rural and Indian country that may have led you to today's webinar. One final quick note, while you're introducing yourselves in the chat, is to try to avoid clicking on the red menu panel all the way on the left of your screen. If you click on the red menu panel, it will take you out of the live webinar. If you do accidentally click this, you can simply rejoin by once again clicking the green bar at the top of the screen. With that, it's a great pleasure that I introduce today's webinar instructor, Shelly. I will go ahead and hand it off to you. Here you go.
Shikoli. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Jasmine, and thank you to everyone on this webinar. Let's start this presentation with a prayer. I want to thank the Creator for bringing us all together today. We are all doing great work in Indian country. Please give us the strength and courage to continue to make a difference in our communities by helping to provide affordable housing, cultural relevant services, and opportunities. This helps our tribal members to not only live a good life, but to thrive and make themselves and their communities proud. This can be a tough journey at times. We all must work together. It is truly amazing what we can do when we all work together for the same goals. Please help direct us down the right path. In Jesus' name, amen. A prayer is always a great way to start our time together. I would also like to thank Georgette Palmer and her wonderful staff for all of the great programming they are doing at the Native Learning Center. These webinars and conferences are great information to help our Native American communities thrive. I would also like to thank them for providing me the opportunity to be the instructor. Let me start out by introducing myself. As Jasmine mentioned, I'm Shelley Tuzzarelli, and I'm a proud tribal member of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin. My reservation is up near Green Bay. We have the Bear Clan, the Wolf Clan, and the Turtle Clan. My family's part of the Turtle Clan and was the inspiration for my company name. I am the owner of Turtle Clan Development Services. It's a Native American woman-owned small business that I started in 2013. The mission of my company is through training and technical assistance like these trainings to help tribal members and leaders to increase the quality and quantity of their affordable housing and to develop or expand their economic development in their communities in Indian country nationwide. I am also the co-founder of and the executive director of Visionary Ventures NFP Corporation. Our nonprofit is a Native American nonprofit 501c3 with over 51% Native American board of directors and an advisory board with over 51% Native American members. Our mission is to work with community members to advocate and promote affordable housing, economic development, and services to the Native American communities. In providing these opportunities, it helps to bring stability and hope to individuals and families. Previous to starting my own company, I worked for over 20 years with Illinois Housing Development Authority. They are the agency that finances affordable housing for the entire state of Illinois. I started out in the asset management department and then moved to the low-income housing tax credit department, where I actually managed the program for several years. I have been in affordable housing for over 30 years. This is hard work. You definitely have to have a passion for this work, and that's why we do it. Just a little housekeeping. Like Jasmine said, everyone's going to be muted. And please put your questions in the chat box, and Jasmine's going to take a look at that. And if we have any questions, we'll go ahead and get those answered. Or, if you'd like to unmute and ask your question, that's good too. We're also going to try and leave some time at the end to go over any additional questions. Course description and objectives. Building a successful affordable housing project begins with a successful team. The first thing the tribal housing entity has to accomplish is to determine the type of affordable housing project that your community needs. Once that is determined, it is essential to put the right development team for your affordable housing project. Each team member brings their own unique set of skills to the project. They will each need to have the right experience and capacity to successfully complete the project. Over the past several years, there have been a lot more Native American companies coming into the affordable housing industry. Using a Native American company will be a great asset to your project. I will talk about a few of these companies later in the presentation. We all need to work together to put these companies all together in one resource guide. So if that's something that, we could talk about at another webinar, is making sure that we have access to all of these companies so we can be using them on our projects. Some of the training objectives, let me go back, is that after this webinar, you'll need to know that you need to determine the type of affordable housing that you want to build and what type of financing you'll use. Who are the development team members? Do you have procurement rules when selecting your vendors and your development team? Explain what the team member roles are. What is a request for proposal or a request for qualifications? And also we'll talk a little bit more about Native American companies' use on your project. As we all know, our nation is in a housing crisis. But in Indian country, we have been in a housing crisis for so much longer. We all know that there's a substantial need for all types of housing in Indian country. Every reservation has a lack of affordable housing and market rate housing as far as that goes for our tribal members. There are so many of our tribal members that want to return to the reservation, but just can't find any housing. We know there's a need for multifamily, elder housing, veterans, permanent supportive housing, and even employer-assisted housing for our tribal members on and off the reservation. I just want to start out by, today we're going to be focusing on putting that development team together to get your project started. But I just wanted to kind of go over a few of those resources that are available to finance your development, because this is going to be something you're going to bring that vision of your project together. The number one source for affordable housing development in the U.S. today is the Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program. Some states also have state housing, their own state housing tax credits. There are home funds, which are the Home Investment Partnership Program through HUD. There's a lot of different state and local housing trust funds. There's the Affordable Housing Program through the Federal Home Loan Bank, federal and state grant programs, rural development. If you don't know your rural development officer, get to know them because they have a lot of funds available. And also the Native American Housing Assistance and Self-Determination Act. These funds, and then also the Indian Housing Block Grants. These are all, encompassing a lot of the funding that you'll be using as you're developing your plan for housing. Now let's take a look at what needs to be done to put that successful team together. As we mentioned before, once you decide that your community needs housing, which we all know they do, the next step is the feasibility phase. In this phase, you need to determine what type of housing you plan to build. Do you need that multi-family housing near your casino for your employees? Do you need elder housing to help our most vulnerable? Housing for your veterans? You will start out by doing your research and see if your idea has the potential to be a successful affordable housing project. You'll also need to work on the vision for your project. Where is the project going to be located? You need to make sure it's close to utilities and infrastructure, because infrastructure can be one of the most costly items for your development. So if you can put it close to where the infrastructure is, that's going to be your best bet. So you really need to think about that. And you also need to start thinking about the experience and knowledge of your current team and what sources of funds do you currently have to put towards your project. You will need to work very closely with your tribal housing authority, your tribal department, or your tribally designated housing entity. They are the best information. They have the best information about the housing needs based on the tribal community need and based on community input. A lot of times you might want to start out by doing some focus groups, do a survey. There's a lot of things, and that can all be done through your tribal housing authority, or you can even hire someone to do focus groups so that you can really determine what are the best needs. You may have several needs, but maybe multifamily housing is your first step. Maybe that's the most one that you need first. And then you're going to do some elderly housing, then veterans housing, then permanent supportive housing. So you really need to understand what the vision is for housing for your community. You may even want to start with a vision statement for your project. A vision statement is really a dynamic roadmap that guides your entire team from initial concept, groundbreaking, to the grand opening and beyond. It can steer what your decision makings and attract those potential partners and team members who share your vision. You are building community within community. You're not just building homes. You're building that home for your tribal members so that you have thriving communities. The next thing that is important is to see if your tribal housing authority, your TDHE, or your housing department have the appropriate knowledge in the key aspects of housing development. These different aspects will include your property development, housing management, financial management, and raising funds through those federal, state, government, local funds, and private funds. The property development process involves identifying opportunities and site selection, conducting those feasibility studies to see what type of housing you need, those focus groups, making sure that you have all those studies. And a lot of these take time, so you have to make sure that you put in ample time on your timeline to make sure that you can get all these studies completed. Also talks about the concept of your development, securing those financing, and also obtaining any permits if that's necessary, community approvals, getting the construction done, and then finally leasing up to your tribal members. Housing management is the professional oversight of your rental development. This includes services like tenant screening, lease administration, rent collection, property maintenance, and resident relations to ensure your tribal members have tenant satisfaction and a quality living environment. Next one is the financial management for housing development. This really includes that meticulous budget forecasting, cost control, revenue management, risk management, and financial monitoring to ensure that your project can sustain itself and sustain itself over time. You want to make sure that it makes enough money to be able to pay for all the maintenance that's required and any taxes, insurance on the project. So you have to make sure that it is sustainable. Key practices include setting realistic budgets, closely tracking expenses against the budgets, securing diverse funding, managing the cash flow effectively, like for the draws for the construction, and adapting to market changes like government shutdown. So there's a lot of things that can come into play while you're managing this process, because it can be a 1 to 5 year process. The first year being your concept, and you may not get it built for 5 years. So there's a lot of time that may elapse during this phase. So also you have to, ensure that whatever funds that you're using, that you're ensuring that those regulatory compliance issues are being controlled, and you're adhering to all those regulations. So you have to have somebody that's on site that knows those regulations. Also, you're going to need to raise funds for your housing development. You need to target federal resources like the low-income housing tax credits, HUD grants, secure state and local funds through housing finance agencies, and tax credits. You can attract private capital through investors and foundations. And also you can establish that public-private partnership, that people that have the same vision and mission that you do really would like to help provide affordable housing in Indian country. So leave no rock unturned when you're starting to get these funds together. Speak with everyone. A lot of times your board members have a lot of those connections. So make sure you're reaching out to your board members. And if you have any community members that was in construction before and to find out what they've used, talk to other tribal communities that are doing affordable housing, find out how they financed it, what funds did they use. So a lot of this information is really part of relationships that you've had and ongoing relationships and new relationships that you're going to be developing through this process. And again, if you don't have those skills in-house, then that's when you'll need to bring in team members that have those skills. Okay, so this is what we have so far on our checklist. You need a strong shared housing vision that builds an organizational strategy for your affordable housing development. You have to make sure that your project is feasible. And then you need to start building your team with the right experience and skills in housing development, property management, financial management, and raising those funds for your project. The next part of the checklist should also include evaluating all your support, all of those strong links that your tribal community has made with local businesses, banks, groups, agencies that want to support your housing. You have to make sure that you have one member of your team that is equipped and willing to take the lead on your project. Then you need to have your accountability structure in place with written, who's doing what. You need to have like the job descriptions, policies and procedures on how you're going to evaluate your general contractor, how you're going to bid out different things. So you need to have all of this in place. This may mean that certain staff have different roles during the housing process and will have to shift their responsibilities until the project is completed. So all of this has to be taken into account. One very important beginning step is also to make sure that you have adequate insurance coverage from start to finish. Okay, here's a big overview of the outline of the affordable housing process. And once you know the process, then you'll know what team members you need to bring on board. So these really are the main steps. As I mentioned earlier, the low-income housing tax credits are really the main funding source that is used in the United States today to develop affordable housing. So if you are planning to apply to your state housing finance agency for low-income housing tax credits, the first thing you need to do is call your state agency, set up a meeting to discuss your project. If you can, meet with them in person, because that's always the best way to start. And before your meeting, you kind of need to have your development idea in place, your vision, and kind of even the budget. So that if you have a gap in your budget, you can see if they have any funds that are available. So really, but the first thing you need to do before you meet with them in person, each state has, for their low-income housing tax credits, they have a qualified allocation plan. Download this document and make sure you review the document. This document is also referred to as the QAP, the state's QAP. This document has the timeline for each credit round that the state agency is having. Some states have one round and some states have two rounds. I know that Illinois and Wisconsin both only have one round. So you only have one chance to get this right. So you need to do it as the best you can the first time. The qualified allocation plan also has the mandatory requirements and the scoring categories. You need to be able to make sure that your project is scoring as high as possible. These credits are highly competitive and you want to make sure you're going in with the best application as possible. You need to bring any and all of your questions to the meeting with you. If you're planning to have a consultant on the project, bring them also to the meeting. You can go over the details of your project, and also the state agency can give you some good advice and let you know if they have any additional funding that you can use for your project. The state housing agencies usually have home funds, housing trust funds, and as I mentioned before, some states even have their own state tax credits to help finance projects. There are a lot of states in Indian country. Unfortunately, Illinois, we don't have any Indian country. The Potawatomi finally is recognized as a tribal nation in Illinois. But I was able to do a lot of housing for Indian country here in Illinois, but there are a lot of states that are in Indian country and have been criticized for not doing enough low-income housing tax credits for their tribal communities. As we know, everyone else in the country nationwide are using these resources for housing. We need to start using these resources also to start building our affordable housing for our tribal members. Now, let's kind of walk through the process. You already have your vision and kind of have developed the idea for your affordable housing project. Next, you have to identify the site or buildings that you want to use. Again, make sure that your site is close to infrastructure, water, sewer, electricity, because if not, that can put a lot of cost onto your development budget if you have to bring all those that infrastructure in. Rural development has a lot of grants and different things to help in Indian country. So you'll want to definitely reach out to find out who your rural development office is and who is in charge of your area. Talk to them because, again, that's going to be a big budget item if you have to bring all that into a vacant lot that's away from any kinds of infrastructure. Another good idea to do, if you have buildings on your reservation that you could turn into housing, adaptive reuse of these buildings can be a challenge, but it's better than all that material going to the landfill. My first project in 2020 was the adaptive reuse of 2 elementary schools. These buildings were already in the community, and it was great to see these buildings come back to life. These buildings were over 100 years old, and they will last. Now that they've been renovated, they're so solid, and they just don't build like they used to build. So these buildings will last. We also did new construction in the parking lot, and I can guarantee you that the 2 schools will outlive the new construction. So it's very important that if you can do an adaptive reuse, that's a really great option. Again, they can be a challenge, but it is wonderful to see them come back to life. You know, every project is required to have a market study, and that shows the need for the type of housing that you're planning to build. These reports can take some time. So you have to make sure that you're building this into your timetable, into your schedule. so you can plan accordingly to make sure that you're getting these studies done, because that study has to go with your application to the State Housing Finance Agency. The next important thing is putting that great development team together so that you can start working on the next steps. So assemble your team. Then you'll need to secure your property. If it's tribal land, it may need to go through the tribal council to get proper site control to submit with your low-income housing tax credit application. The state agency can let you know exactly what you will need from the tribal council. Sometimes it may just be a letter stating that this land has been, at the last tribal council, has been set aside and will be transferred to whatever entity that's chosen to be the owner. Sometimes, I'll get into this a little bit more later, but it's usually a new entity, a development arm off of either the housing authority or the tribe itself that has a development arm, and then the land would be transferred into the development arm. And then that letter stating that the tribal nation is willing to do that would have to go into the application. But I would definitely talk to the State Housing Finance Agency to send them a copy of the letter and say, will this be adequate as site control? So next thing, and then again, as part of this, your team, you'll need to get a good attorney that has worked on affordable housing projects before. Again, they will be part of your team, and you're going to need them for advice on these projects as you move forward. Again, you'll have to obtain local community approvals. This will usually be from your tribal council if your project is going to be on tribal land. If you're planning it off reservation, then you'll need to get the local mayor or city manager's support, a letter from them. Again, you've already worked through everything, so your preliminary budget should be done. So you should have the total cost of the project. Then you'll submit your application. All of your team members have helped you put this application together to submit it to the State Housing Finance Agency for review. Then you go to the state agency board for approval to receive your allocation of credits. Your architect will prepare the final construction draws, and you'll use those to bid out. You want to bid it out to several general contractors. If you have Native American general contractors that have completed a low-income housing tax credit project before, please let them bid on the project. And then once you receive your bids back from the contractors, based on your procurement and what your tribal process is, you'll select the best general contractor possible. Then you send out your pro forma and your project costs to, it's called a tax credit equity provider. What you're going to be doing is, now that you have an allocation of tax credits, you're going to sell them to a tax credit equity partner, and they're going to put the money into the deal today. So again, you're going to need your attorney to help you once you get the letter of interest from your tax credit provider. You'll want them to go through that to help you understand it. Again, you may need some help evaluating the equity providers. You want to make sure that they're going to be providing you around the same amount that's going on around the country. Or sometimes you do get a little less in Indian country, but you want to make sure it's similar to other projects. If you have a good relationship with a local bank or even a larger bank, but you have a good relation, start there and talk to them about getting a construction and permanent loan. Again, after that, once the construction is complete, then you need to schedule closing with the State Housing Finance Agency, and then place your project in service and start leasing it. So I know this is a lot, but this is the main thing that you'll need to consider as you're moving your project forward. I know I went through it, kind of quickly, but again, you'll have this for your reference, because this is basically the steps that are involved. Now, this is really your key team members that will help you get your affordable housing project completed. You have the developer or the owner, which can be both, same person. Normally, that would be the entity that is part of the tribe, but it's its own entity, but it's owned by the tribe. So that, and a lot of times they do this. A lot of tribal communities have been doing a development arm, because once these projects are approved by tribal council, these projects move forward. They can't be canceled by the next tribal councilman that comes in. Once they're approved, these projects can move forward through this entity. Then you have your general contractor. You have the architect, tax credit attorney, a project property manager, your tax credit consultants, and accountants. As part of your team, as I was saying earlier, you will be working closely with banks that will be providing your construction and your permanent loan. And there may be some other entities that are involved that are providing grants or any other funding sources. So they all become part of your team. So you want to make sure that you're vetting these banks and all of the funding sources that you're getting, vetting them very well so that you know exactly what you're getting into. And also you need to choose your tax credit syndicator or your equity syndicator very wisely, because they are part of your project for 10 years. So you want to make sure that you have a great relationship with them. I'm going to stop there and see if anybody has any questions that they would like to ask, or if they want to put anything in the chat. We'll answer questions as we move along. But again, I'm going to try and leave some time at the end for questions. As I mentioned earlier, you need to review your current team members in your organization that will be working on this affordable housing project. Evaluate their skill sets and determine where you have experience gaps in order to determine the professional services that you will need to hire. Depending on the structure of your project will also determine the type of services you will need. In some cases, if the tribal housing has the capacity, they will be the developer. But it is usually a development entity that the tribe puts together with approval from the tribal council. We found in Indian country that's probably the best way to handle housing development in Indian country, because of the way things are structured. And a lot of times your housing authority or your housing department just don't have the capacity to take this on. If the tribal housing doesn't have the capacity, then they may need to hire, even if you do have this tribal entity, you may still need to hire a project manager or a development consultant to work with the development team for your project, because the tribe will still be the owner of the project. You just need to bring somebody in that has the skills to help move this project forward. Now let's just go in, we're going to go into each of the key players a little bit. As I mentioned before, the owner or the developer, they really are the ultimate long-term responsibility and control. They're the ones that's going to own this project for the life of the project. So you need to make sure the entity that is the owner has the capacity to do so. The developer, plays the lead, in this, bringing this project from vision all the way to making sure that it's ready, that it gets constructed and it's ready for occupancy for your tribal members. If your tribally designated housing entity does have the capacity, then they will be the developer or owner of the project. If not, sometimes there's that need to either make that housing development entity, or you can joint venture with a qualified developer. We kind of consider them like a turnkey developer. They'll come in and they'll help you with the development, and then they'll walk away and the tribe will own it. So there's a couple of different ways that you might want to structure your project. So that's a lot to think about. Next thing we want to talk about, these are some more responsibilities for the developers. They're in charge of development, financing, construction, completion, making sure that the project is rented up and leased up on time, the ongoing management, and then also compliance of all of those regulatory agreements. If you're using the low-income housing tax credits, there's certain requirements that have to be adhered to. There's so many documents that have to go to the state housing agency, so you need to make sure that you've got the right person. But all in all, the development owner are the ones that are responsible. So you have to make sure you're hiring the right person to make sure that this is getting completed. There are a lot of other responsibilities that the owner and the developer have to do. So they're responsible for that coordination, with that initial analysis, the planning and the development of your project, making sure that you hire qualified architects and general contractors and all of your other consultants. They're also the ones that you want to make sure that you maintain your relationship and you're at those meetings with your architect and your GC, because you want to make sure what your vision is, that they are making sure that it is coming to light the way you want it to. So you have to be there with them all along the way. You have to make sure that you have somebody that can negotiate those contracts, reading them, working with your legal department. So the owner has to be part of all of this. You need to prepare a development schedule so that you're making sure that you're hitting all of your benchmarks. That budget that you put together in the beginning, you want to make sure that you've got enough contingency in there in case you come up against something that was unforeseen, especially if you're doing adaptive reuse. You always have to make sure that you have enough money in that budget for unforeseen items. You have to make sure that your cost estimate is that you work with your construction team. And a lot of times, once you get your development budget together, and then you've hired your GC and your architect, you need to sit down and value engineer. What parts of this can we really tweak or take out in order to save money? Because a lot of times they go for all the bells and whistles, sometimes the architects and the construction team. But when it comes down to it, we don't need all that. Let's value engineer this and let's see where can we have some cost savings. And then also, coordinate the completion of that, of the design of your project. So there's a lot that whoever you put in charge, they need to make sure that they're part of all of this process. Next key player is that general contractor. If anyone has ever done a project, you know how important that general contractor is, because they oversee and manage the construction of the entire project. The general contractor it's a big role, and it requires all of those skills and knowledge and they have to spend so much time on site. They, they have the trailer there. They're on site. They're making sure that everything's moving along as it's supposed to. And the owners have meeting. You're having either weekly meetings with the GC and the architect and whatever other team members to make sure that the project is moving forward as it's supposed to, and that it's on budget and it's on time. So, you want to make sure, like I said, you want to at least bid out to at least 3 to 4 general contractors, and make sure that one good thing too is if you can get a good recommendation or go and see some of their sites that they've completed, that I would recommend that. And also, the list keeps going. Well, what the general contractor really they have to interact with the architect. So you have to make sure that your architect likes your general contractor and that your general contractor likes your architect, because those two will be working so closely together to make sure that everything that's on the architect's plans is being picked up by the general contractor and making sure that it's being done correctly. So also they're bidding out a lot of parts of the job. So they have to gather and evaluate the bids of all the subcontractors. They also, if there's any specialty contractors like elevators, different things like that, they have to coordinate bringing in all of those special contractors. They also, if there's any special skilled labor that needs to be brought in, they have to arrange for that. And they will be working with the developer to make sure that whatever permits and whatever inspections have to be done on your property, that the permits are being done. Again, that permits can sometimes take a lot of time. So you have to make sure you're planning that into your timeline. And then also, once the state agency is going to require that their inspectors are coming out there, and your tax credit equity provider, they're going to be sending inspectors out. So they're going to have to, your general contractor is going to have to make sure that they are putting all these inspections on. And again, the general contract or the owner or the developer is going to have to be at these inspections also, unless you have somebody that can do that for you. So again, get at least 3 to 4 general contractors that you get bids from. Evaluate that, take time, evaluate their bids, and good luck picking the best one. Next key player is your architect. You want to make sure that your architect, that you have a good relationship with them, because what your vision is, you want it to be relevant, that construction, what it looks like, the way it feels, how it is in the neighborhood. You want all of your vision, that you want your architect to pick that up and design, some quality housing, again, within a tight budget. But there's a way that it can be done so that we can have culturally relevant design to our buildings. And, we want it so that it's creates beautiful living, functional, and it's just really successful within our communities. And again, like I said, the developer and the GC have to work closely so that you make sure that your design concepts, and if you have to change things as you go, you have to make sure that your architect is there to help you make those changes if you need to. Again, these drawings need to be submitted to different trades. So they have to be, you have to be out, make sure that you have an architect that is willing to work hard and get these drawings done, because you need them for the general contractor. You'll need them to send to the state housing finance agency. So you need to make sure that you've got somebody that really has done one of these projects before and can be able to produce those drawings when you need them, and in the way that this is required, or permits and for the state housing agency. So architect, get that architect that has been referred to you, and it'd be nice if that architect had worked with your general contractor before. So that's something to consider. Your attorney. You need attorney, hopefully, that you've worked with in the past. You need a good real estate attorney because they're going to be reviewing different aspects and different contracts throughout the entire affordable housing process. You want to make sure, and again, some of these projects can be very complicated and very difficult. You're going to have different contracts from the GC, your architect. You're going to have all of the, whatever type of financing is coming through, all of those will come with contracts. So you need to make sure that your attorney can help you through this process. Again, acquisition and development, for if you have to put that property into the development's name, so that's going to have to be for site control. So if you have property that has to be put in the name of the structure, the entity structure, you're going to need an attorney to do that. All your financing documents, you want your attorney to review. And again, forming these tax structures, you'll need an attorney to help you with that. And environmental, a lot of times before you even put a shovel in the ground, depending upon what types of funding you're using, you have to have environmental approval. It has to go through certain stages in order for you to even put one shovel in the ground. If you do it before that, you can really violate some of those funding sources. So make sure that your attorney is there by your side, helping guide you through this. The property management. We all see that through our housing authorities. What a big job being a property manager is. And part of the role of the property management is to, they don't just collect rent. They do the complete management of the project, from leasing up the units to, maintaining the maintenance of the projects throughout the life of the development. So a lot of times, if this is your first low-income housing tax credit project, then the state housing agency may require that you hire a third-party property manager at least for 1 to 3 years until your staff can understand and go through the training to manage a low-income housing tax credit project. So again, you'll have to do good research to make sure that you're bringing in a good property manager that understands all the rules and regulations of the low-income housing tax project in order to make sure that your project is leasing the right candidates, making sure that all of the requirements, the reporting that needs to be done to the state housing agency, you need to know making sure that all of this stuff is done. And then they will help to train some of your housing staff in order for them to manage the project in the future. So this is another big thing. And we all know that proper management of a development can make or break a development. So you need to make sure you've got a great property manager. Again, some of the key responsibilities of that property manager is when construction is just about complete, maybe it depends. Every project's different, but I'm sure already have a wait list. So a lot of your communities already have a wait list, but leasing up and getting those tenants ready as soon as construction is completed. So doing the pre-screening of the applicants and making sure that they meet all of the requirements. They have to, bring them in to show them a unit, or at least show them what a unit's going to look like, doing those background checks, the credit, criminal reports, verifying what employment, and then also the past and present rental history. So and again, we have to do this just like you do your other housing. Yet everything has to be what you do for one person, you have to do for everyone. Preparing those lease packages for the tenant's signature. And then again, you're the property manager is, if they have any issues after they move in, they're going to be calling the property management. So you want to make sure you have some good relationship with your tenants moving in and as they live in your property. Lenders. The lenders will be the ones that's going to be providing your construction and your permanent loan. Again, as I mentioned before, if your tribal nation already has that relationship with a bank or lenders, really start out with them first. You should have already determined how much financing that you need. So start reaching out to them as soon as possible about providing. Sometimes they may only want to do the permanent loan. Sometimes they want to do both the construction and permanent loan. So sometimes you'll have one bank doing the construction and the permanent loan, or you'll just have one doing both. So it just depends. Every bank is different. Procurement. You need to find out from your tribal organization, what are your procurement rules that will govern your housing project. If you have an agreement under the Native American Housing Assistance and Self-Determination Act, you need to find out exactly what procurement rules apply. So check with you may even have a procurement officer that works for the tribe. So I would definitely sit down and talk to them, let them know all the people that you may need to hire and what are the policies and procedures for the procurement. One of the ways that you will be hiring your team members will be through a request for qualifications and a request for proposals. The first one here is the request for qualifications, and this document will provide a list to interested parties on what requirements you're looking for the project. Again, this could be, you could be doing a request for qualifications for your GC, for your attorney, you know, any of the team members that you need to hire. You could do a request for qualifications. Again, this just wants to see if they're qualified to do your project. But if you already know they're qualified, then sometimes you may want to do a request for proposal. And this is used when you want to select the best candidate for your development. These proposals, once you send out a request for proposal to your general contractors, for an architect, you put in all of your, there are a lot of requests for proposals and requests for qualifications online that you can look at, but my best advice would be, if you've used a request for proposal or request for qualifications in the past, don't reinvent the wheel. Take that one and then just modify it for what you're looking for for your project. So if you need to just change it up, but at least you have the basic format for it. But if not, like I said, there's plenty of examples online that you can use. The proposals, once you send out your request for proposal, then you need to have some guidance on how you're going to be reviewing your responses. So you can evaluate them in a lot of different ways. So whatever you normally use, you can go ahead and use that evaluation process. A lot of times it's, price, but always the lowest price isn't always your best bet. So you really need to take a look at those proposals. Again, here, let me just kind of go through this process a little bit. So again, once you receive your tax credit, once you put your initial tax credit application in and you're awarded credits, you go to the boards, the State Housing Financial Board, and then about a month later, you'll receive your reservation agreement, a reservation letter that states what your tax credits that you've received, the name of your project. The State Housing Finance Agency will give you a number for your project. It'll tell when this project has to be placed in service without any penalties. So that agreement is very important. Then we all know that between application and as you're starting to close your project, on your financing and start construction, you may have to put an updated tax credit application with those revisions into the State Housing Finance Agency. They'll prepare what it's called a carryover allocation agreement. And then you'll need to meet, it's called a 10% test. And what this is they want to make sure that you're putting some, that you're really moving forward with this project. So you just have to prove that you've spent at least 10% of the total project costs, so that they know that you're actually, you've got you're doing your environmental, you had to pay for this, you had to pay for that, you're already purchasing materials. So a lot needs to be put into your 10% test, and your tax credit accountant will help you do the 10% test. Then the construction, once the construction is completed, you'll need a cost certification. Again, your tax credit accountant will help you put that together. You may have updated tax credit application. Once you place in service, there'll be some final tweaks that the State Housing Finance Agency may want. And then you're going to be putting your project, you're going to place it in service. Then you'll get a land use agreement stating that this project is going to remain affordable for 30 to 40 years, depending upon what's in your land use agreement. Sometimes if you're using home funds and the loan goes out 40 years, then it will state that it remains affordable for 40 years. So, but a lot of times, once we do these affordable housing, it's going to be affordable for the life of the project. So that's not a problem. Next thing is what you'll get from the State Housing Agency is that Form 8609. That is so important because once you get that, that's what you're going to give to your tax credit syndicator in order for them to file that with their taxes in order for them to get their tax credits. And then your property management company is, this is where they come in, where they've already pre-leased everything and to making sure that they're qualified and getting your project leased up by the date that it has to be leased up. And then once it's all done, you have to make sure annually that you have a financial audit, that you have an audit completed because the state agency will want that, and you'll have to have tax returns for the entity. So this is what will be required at the end of each year for your development. And again, there will be some inspections that the State Housing Finance Agency will do throughout the life, or at least throughout the state agency will come out annually to do an inspection. And your tax credit syndicator will be at least up to the 10 years until they're out of the project. As I mentioned earlier, it is so important. There are a lot of Native American companies that now are entering into the affordable housing arena. So let's try and work with as many of our tribal community entities as we can. I know one of the projects, Green Fire is in Wisconsin. We have Green Fire. They're a general contractor through the Ho-Chunk. And also like Michelle Cooper, she's Native American, woman owned, and it's called Appliance Smart Contracting. So, we need to really start reaching out and try and put all of these resources in one place so that whenever you do a new project, you can go to this page and say, let's try and use these on our development. So whenever you're putting your request for proposals out and your request for qualifications, please make sure you're sending it to all of these Native American companies so we can start building up their capacity so they can continue to work in Indian country. I want to now, I've got some case studies that I want to kind of go over. A couple of these are a little older, so the numbers are old, but I just want to give you an idea of what great developments that you can be doing in your community. This one is Aski Ambadan, and this was a permanent supportive housing project up in Red Cliff for the Chippewa tribe up in upper Wisconsin. This project was 24 units. It's for persons with physical disabilities and mental disabilities. Veterans, 25% is targeted towards veterans and people at risk of homeless. This is something that we could all use in our community. The solution, they secured equity by using low-income housing tax credits and soft funds through the Affordable Housing Program, which is a federal home loan bank grant, and home funds. This project will benefit from, they are getting HAP subsidies, which is HUD Section 8 subsidies for each unit, which is great. If you can get these subsidies from your county, again, your state housing agency will help you tap some of these resources, but you can check with your county. The county usually has a housing authority that has the Section 8 vouchers, and what you want is the project-based vouchers for your project. So again, that's I got to add this to this presentation. I don't think I had that in the beginning there, but you will, if you can get Section 8 vouchers for your project through the community, that would be great. Again, this is just a rendering of the development, single family. It's 24 units. Wouldn't we all love to have this in our community? This project means New Hope. And it does look like they do have, they do have some 2 stories. Again, this is an old development, so these numbers are not right, but I just wanted to show you it's probably double or triple that now. I just want to show you the sources of funds that are used. Again, it's the Affordable Housing Program grant funds through the Chicago Federal Home Loan Bank. There's several branches of the Federal Home Loan Bank that you can go through. The home funds, the low-income housing tax credit equity, and as you can see, the low-income housing tax credits puts almost 76% of your projects or more into your development. So these are great resources. And then the state agency, most state agency requires that the developer defer some of their fees. And again, whoever the entity is, if it's part of the tribal entity, they'll receive these funds, and then you start using those to go build the next one. Those developer fees are great to start that vision for your next project. And as you can see, the uses, you have the acquisition costs, construction, soft costs, which would be all of your consultant fees, all the types of things, and then reserves. Another thing that I didn't mention earlier was you have to make sure you have proper reserves, operating reserves, tax and insurance reserves. There's the State Housing Finance Agency will require you to have at least 3 or 4 different reserves. And you want these because if something comes up, you want to be able to have the funds to do it. And annually, you'll be putting money into these reserves so that you make sure that your project can be maintained throughout the life of the project. This is another one. This one wasn't in Indian country, but I just wanted to say housing, supportive housing for our veterans is so important. So again, using the low-income housing tax credits here, home, in Illinois, there's a donation tax credits. They were able to get a VA loan. They used some of their deferred developer fee and then donations and other grants. So it's a lot of layering of funds, but if you can provide this type of housing for your most vulnerable and your veterans in your community, it's just amazing. This is another one. This is 22 units of affordable senior housing. There's project-based, 5 project-based Section 8 units. Again, if you can get a couple of those through your state or your local housing authority, that would be great. This is new construction of 1 and 2 bedrooms with a community center. This one I'm very proud of. This is one of the first low-income housing tax credit projects up on, it's Red Willow Flats up on the Oneida Reservation. Very proud. Every time I go up there, I have to go by and take a look. It's completed now, but just to be able to have what I've been working on for so many years up on my reservation is just, looks like the contractors did a great job. This is the first low-income housing tax credit on the Oneida Reservation. Again, in Oneida, what they did is it's owned by Oneida's Real Estate Development Corporation. So they do have a development arm. It's called 1822 Land and Development. And they did concentrate on utilizing as many of the Oneida and tribally owned companies. OSC Group, NS2 was the general contractor. Okay, let me see. I think one second here. Okay, so they gave me all these acronyms. Let me, so the Oneida Tribal Engineering, Science, and Construction Group is a small business, and SBA, there's other companies they're the parent company. So they have, they are wholly owned by the Oneida Nation. MS2 was their general contractor, and then Oneida Engineering Solutions and Oneida Total Integrated Enterprise was used in the pre-development for the engineering. They also used Oneida Tribal Painting Company, Go Green, as well. Bay Bank is our Oneida Bank. We were one of the first tribal nations in Wisconsin to have our own bank. And now we have 3 branches, 2 in Oneida and then 1 up on the Menominee Reservation. And Bay Bank was instrumental in assisting them through the Affordable Housing Program grant process. So again, those relationships are so important. The Jeff House and Pete King run the 1922 Land and Development Entity. I do try and stop in and see them as often as possible. They said this is not the first, this may be the first one with using low-income housing tax credits, but it won't be their last one. They're already starting to work on the next one. So very, very excited. They said that they learned a lot in this process and that this project has allowed them to shorten the curve for the next 1 or 10 projects. Red Willow's total project cost was around $14 million. Another picture, very excited. Yes, it's completed, and I believe it's almost fully leased. Here's the interior. Beautiful. Next one I want to talk about, and this is off reservation, but again, Jigsabeek is the first urban native affordable housing development in Chicago's history. Like I said, Visionary Ventures is one of the, I'm joint venturing with Full Circle Communities on this, another affordable housing developer here in Illinois, in Chicagoland. We've been fighting here in Chicago for over 50 years for housing. Since the 1950s and 1960s with the Indian Relocation Act, we had, they would give tribal members, the government was trying to take the Native Americans off of the tribal lands, off of reservations, and assimilate them into the cities in Milwaukee and Chicago, give them $100 and a one-way bus ticket and a promise of jobs, housing, services. And of course, when they came to Chicago, there were very few jobs, no housing, and no services. And at that time, that's when in 1953, that's why the American Indian Center in Chicago was established in order to help tribal members coming in. We service about 150 to 175 different tribal nations here in Chicago. And that's one of the main reasons that the American Indian Center came, was to help provide services, to help find housing, help with finding jobs, and providing that cultural connection that they needed by having powwows and meetings and beadworking and all different kinds of things. And they're still in existence today and thriving. And I was just at their powwow. They had a powwow in Schiller Woods this weekend. So great to see that things are still very active. We have a very active Native American group here in Chicago, and we actually have about 600 Oneida tribal members that live in the Chicagoland area. So it's important that we do housing in the urban settings, because we have a lot of tribal members in these areas. Again, it's called Jigsabeek. We work with the Potawatomi. And because we're only a few blocks from the Chicago River, Jigsabeek means at the river's edge. And as you can see, we work very closely with our architect, Jaime from Canopy. I told him when I first met him, I said, okay, Jaime, I'm expecting an award-winning project. He said, no pressure, Shelley. But as you can see, he took because the river's from the east, and it looks like the river's flowing through the front of the building with the north and the south branch of the Chicago River. And you can't see it real good in this picture, but it actually flows all the way into the lobby. You'll see the blue will flow right into the lobby. We have commercial space on the first floor. We're going to be putting the California Indian Manpower Consortium, which is a workforce company, nonprofit that will be able to work with our residents. Up on the top, you can see that's the 7th floor, but because we were having complaints from the community about the 7 stories, we kind of pushed it back so you really can't see it from the ground. But we're very excited about this project. There's community space up there. We actually even have an artisan room so that some of our tribal members, a lot of them do beadwork, make regalia. Instead of having it spread all over their kitchen table, we got a space upstairs and they can meet other residents and, community building. Again, it's 45 units of 100% affordable housing. We've got studios, 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units, because we really want that intergenerational component. We've got the ground floor for a Native American nonprofit. We'll have on-site management and maintenance, and also we're going to be bringing in wraparound supportive services. You can't just provide affordable housing without providing those essential services. One of the reasons we chose this site is because it's close to the American Indian Center, and it's also close to the American Indian Health Services of Chicago. We actually had a call with them yesterday. We're going to be entering into a memorandum of understanding for services that they're going to bring on site, and then also services that we can make sure that our residents get to them for. So we're very excited about that. Again, we'll have on-site management, maintenance, on-site laundry. We actually have laundry in the units. We fought for this. We thought because of the budget, we were going to have it taken out, but so important to be able to do your laundry in your unit. It just makes living a little bit better. I lived downtown for 24 years and I did not have laundry in my unit. So I think this is such a nice perk. There's also parking. We don't have one-for-one parking, but in the city with, we've got a great bus line in the L. There's also surrounding parking in the neighborhood. And we also have a bike room. For the bike room, there is a one-for-one because Chicago is really big on riding bikes around. So we do have a whole bike room, and if you need to repair your bike, there's some stuff in there. So it's going to be great. Again, here's some of the amenities: the community room with a kitchen. If we have stuff, we're going to have to feed people because we love food. We actually have a green roof, and we're also going to have a rooftop deck with garden beds so that we can plant some of our herbs and flowers and vegetables. Like I was saying, the art maker space, a meditation space. We have a business center with computers that people can use. The fitness room, trying to just keep us all healthy, and also space for cultural activities. Here's just what a typical unit would look like, and also balconies. I forgot to mention the balconies. A lot of the buildings are smoke-free these days, but we burn our sage. So one of the things that we fought for was balconies. There's not too many affordable housing developments that have balconies, but we fought for this. I said, if this, we've been fighting for this 50 years. Let's go ahead. We might as well keep the fight going. And we did finally get it approved through the city. It's a very expensive project. And this is our community space up on the top. And I think up on the 6th floor, we should have a beautiful view of the Chicago skyline. So can't wait to see how that turns out. Again, this is kind of another version of the rendering for outside at night. So that's, I just want to say in closing, how important it is to develop our own housing in our own communities. We can continue to use our sovereignty by developing this for our own communities. We want to help our tribal members to have a safe, stable home environment where they can thrive. Put your great team together and make your vision a reality with a new affordable housing for your tribal members and your community. I'd like to open it up now at this time for any questions. If anyone would like to put anything in the chat box.
Actually, Shelley, it looks like we have a few questions coming in.
Okay.
Okay, first from Malia. I apologize if I missed it, but what funding did you use for this project?
Oh yeah, I didn't put that in there. We used every type of financing there was, but the main source it is low-income housing tax credits through the city of Chicago. There's only 2 states that gets 2 allocations of tax credits, New York and Illinois. So Illinois State gets an allocation and the city of Chicago gets an allocation. We actually went through the city of Chicago because I believe this is a Chicago project and they needed to fund it. And then they also have some, we received, we applied for an affordable housing program grant through, which is up to $2 million now. We've applied for that. We should hear within the next few months if we receive those funds. and we had to defer quite a bit of our developer fee, more than we wanted to, but again, we wanted to make this project work. We have a ComEd grant and state donation tax credits, because the project, when we bought the land, it is raised in value. So that difference, we were able to get state donation tax credits. So yeah, I think that's pretty much the main sources that we used.
And also to follow up, she had another question. Since this project is off trust land, how is this tribal only housing? Is it for non-tribal renters as well?
Well, because of fair housing, it's considered, that anybody could apply, but we've already got over 200 people from our community in Chicago on an interested persons list. So they will be, and we'll just continue to put our list at the we're going to do applications at the American Indian Center, and we're going to do applications at the American Indian Health Services. So we're going to abide by, and one of the other things is Native Americans are the most underserved community in Chicago. So one of the things that to further affirmative housing is to outreach to the most underserved, and we are. So and again, we are now in the third and fourth generation of Native Americans in Chicago. So blood's getting thin. So we have some descendants, and we have, but they still want to live with their grandmother, or they still want to live near their grandmother. So that would have been putting another barrier on housing in our community. So we didn't want to make it where you had to have a tribal card, because a lot of our community members just don't, and a lot of them that moved away aren't part of their tribal community and don't have a tribal ID. So, but what we want is, we want our community to live together. So that's how we're doing that. We're making sure that we keep our wait list with our community members.
So I'm just going to go ahead and, oh, wait.
Okay, yeah, so yeah, if you want to talk to me offline, you've got my contact information, and would be happy to talk to you, because again, we have to be able to provide housing in urban areas, because not all of our tribal members live on reservations.
Thank you so much for your input, Maria. Feel free to reach out to Shelly if you do have any more questions, or you'd like to delve a bit more into that topic. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap up today's webinar, and I just want to thank everyone for joining today. Go ahead.
And again, if anyone has any questions, like I said, I've been doing this for 30 years. I understand it from the State Housing Finance Agency area, and now doing the development. So would be happy to speak with you.
And thank you again so much, Shelly, for taking the time and effort to share this presentation with us. I know everyone's certainly learned a lot today. All right. So would you guys please take a moment to complete our survey about today's webinar that I have linked for you in the chat. It only takes a minute or so, and your feedback is really helpful to us and kind of supports us in the work we're doing and tells us what we need to improve upon in future webinars. We invite you to be as candid as you like. This survey is anonymous. And then
nice.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
All right. So please sorry about that. We hope you can join us for our next webinar. It's going to be Harnessing AI for Purpose-Driven Grant Writing with Diane Leonard on October 9th, 2025. So feel free to keep that in your calendar as a reminder if you're interested in that topic. Lastly, feel free to access this or any other recorded webinars at our new Cathedral Webinars archive, now posted to our YouTube channel. Feel free to view them and share them with your colleagues and friends. The link is in the chat. And please also check out our upcoming events posted on our various social medias. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We also have an in-house podcast titled The Hope Thing, a Native American podcast, where we discuss more focused topics within Native American housing and self-determination. You can listen on Simplecast, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, as well as view the video recordings with our guests live on YouTube. Once again, I want to thank all our participants for joining today. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and we hope to connect with you real soon. Bye, guys. Bye, Shelley.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.